think that's like important to remember, like kids, and I refer to the teens as kids sometimes, just like kids in general, like youth, they're much smarter than I think adults see sometimes and then they imagine. I think kids understand things and they feel things like really well. They sometimes like it's a lot of like the growing up and like maturing is like a process of like finding frameworks and ways to understand what they're noticing and like feeling, but and like process it. And I'm starting to still processing things and still don't know how to process some of that. But I feel like kids are really smart and they notice things and they pay attention to. And I think like the idea of like sponges, you know, like being like having access, being able to understand things. Of course, there are like age levels of like explaining things, but like being exposed to different cultures, learning about different perspectives, and again being extremely like I'm always honest with like my students. Like we have a last year that was really like understaffed, hard, and like there were things that like we wanted to do that we're not able. We did our best, almost didn't sleep lots of days, but like try to get things done. But every time we had to like cancel thing or postpone, I had to be really sincere. I got sick. Like this happened. There's a storm coming and we have to leave. And like being really sincere, I think like not treating them as like, oh, you're not gonna understand, I'm not gonna explain. I think that just like dismisses their intelligence and they notice when we do that. And I think like understanding society, like they do in many ways better sometimes than I do. And I think like being open to learn from them too is really important.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if any like practical ways you guys have been able to assist youth or create curiosity and engagement with nature, because a lot of times we'll go to the park and the first thing we'll go towards is like the swings or the playground, which is great. And I've also had experiences where like finding a ladybug, I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. And I know there's like a really beautiful connection with that. And I'm wondering if you guys had any personal experience like bridging that curiosity activities or ways of being, or you've been able to bridge that connection in just parks or things like that that are more accessible.
I guess one thing that comes to mind is something that I think she's in the back. We practice in some of the nature centers. We call it sneaky nature. And so, like, how do you meet people where they're at? And sometimes the goal isn't we want to get you to do this. It's like, what do you want to do? How do we promote and support the local passion, the local interests? But then we shift the location, right? So maybe it is they're doing homework and we got free Wi-Fi, but they're doing it at a place that there's hummingbirds eating at the feeders and there's wildflowers everywhere. And over time, like we get people that will start to reflect on that and be like, oh, like I'm doing the same thing that I like to do, but I'm doing it in this setting, but this is different. The setting is different. And then their exploration kind of builds. So for me, I like to be responsive to, hey, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? You like to swing? Let's go swing. Yeah. Right. And just still being in that environment, doing those things and allowing that, I guess, that other stuff that nature play to sneak in.
Yeah. One thing I love about that concept of sneaky nature is that's such a common thing, emergent like curiosity with youth. I think having, whether it be staff, volunteers, whoever's implementing the program or whatever, be just passionate and excited for whatever may occur. So like maybe like you gave an example, ladybug, having staff that goes, whoa, a ladybug, can we find out what it is? And again, this is one of those like background information for staff for their situation of like, where can we go next to find out more? What can we learn here in this instance with this youth? Like, what can we notice on it? Having questions of what we see, what we hear, using our senses, really capturing that moment is a big part of it. Having open-ended questions with them. Because one thing I've noticed with a lot of youth is like, if you just give them the questions, they can probably figure out a lot of what they want to know anyways. Like if you just direct and focus their curiosity, a lot of it they'll handle. There are times when you gotta step in a little, but.
I think I agree too, like being enthusiastic of like anything outside. Like sometimes you just have to be like, oh my gosh, I just see this plant. I haven't seen this in a long time. Oh my gosh, look at this big bug. like, it's a huge fiddle, and then they get like excited, like, oh my gosh, why are you so excited? And then they go and check it, like, and look at it. I think like being really privileged to be at a museum also helps to be like prepare, like sometimes before we go to like a trip with our kids and like invite someone. I'm like, oh, this is a scientist here from the museum. They're gonna talk to you a little bit about the animals that we can see when we go on this trip. Like, oh, so cool. Also, like, I know that there's like a lot of like that, oh, like phones and going outside, like kids not to be so much in their phones, but there are ways that we can connect those. And like, I was like, let's take a picture, and we introduce them to iNaturalist. That is like the app that you can like just upload like pictures of like what you see outside and figure out what it is. So sometimes we're like, what is this? I don't know. I'm not an entomologist. I don't know what it is. And then we take a picture, and later they like come and tell me, oh, that one that we saw was this. And like connecting the internet and like the phones, like technology with what they see outside. I think that helps like create like a competition. Who's gonna get more observations? I think that helps a little bit. So, yeah.
And note to add with that too is usually a lot of people that maybe are full of that type of information are excited to share that type of information. Like, talk to me about insects. I love it all day. People love birds here at the Aviary.
Yeah.
Those people are usually very passionate about it, so they love. Hopefully, they love those types of emails or questions or text.
With that, I love like taking pictures or of things when we find them out in nature, and be like, let's go talk to our curator at the museum, and we'll have them help us figure out what it is. Or we are like help direct them to resources, so for them to be like to find the answer using like that little bit of curiosity.
Awesome. I have one question back, and we can take one more after that.
I'm curious, from your perspective in Utah, specifically in Salt Lake Valley, what is one thing that we're doing well at when it comes to nature play and equitable access to nature, and what's something that we can do better at?
And so everything, like, first of all, like coming from like the perspective where I am from, and like and again, like the same thing, this is a really incredible place, and like where I grew up, it's really specific. I cannot speak for all the country. I'm like saying that like there are different perspectives and different priorities and access to things depending on like the economic situations. Like we're in a really privileged like country. I'm gonna start by saying that. So in that aspect, I think there are like lots of good things being done, like access to nature, like field trips, like places like the Aviary or like the Jordan River Nature Center, like places like that where kids can be closer. And like I love the nature center, love this place to be like the nature center, but it's like because it's closer, for example, to my kids, like at Glendale, that they can go there and it's more accessible than like coming to like the Liberty Park, for example. So I think those things are being really well done. The idea that I can work now at a museum that can do what I do with teens and has been doing that for almost 30 years, for me it's wild. I would never imagine being able to do that where I'm from. So I would say that like all those things, they're incredible, and like knowing more of the museum, more like institutions and environmental educators that do that, I'll have to say like in many ways, it's really, really like incredible what's being done here. And I think in terms of what can more be done is like, I think more programs like that and more focus on certain communities that have not been receiving as much access. And also like, I think making the culture more accessible, as I was saying like earlier, like not as much from like privileged people who can like afford like certain gear or like, you know, I think that's one thing that I think is like important to make it a little bit better. And maybe more programs. I was like, I'm doing more of that. And I think also language, Jonny mentioned that many times, I see that as a barrier, like in many ways. And being like in the situation, I think we're trying to value a lot of educators who are like bilingual or more, but I think should be more valued, in my opinion, because that makes a huge difference, not only to the students or like to kids or like minors, but also to speaking with like adults. You know, like you're not gonna let your kids go on a field trip or something with people that you cannot even talk to sometimes, you know, like how the trust relationship is important. So I'd say those things.
I was thinking, you know, having lived outside for a long time, and then I think I've been back for less than a year. It's really encouraging to see the consciousness shift within a decade. The conversations that are able to be had in that amount of time and turnaround is really encouraging for me. And it's always a little bit nervous. I mean, I don't pull any punches, but at the same time, like, I was more scared to do that before. I still did it, but it was a lot scarier. It's still scary, but like, that I think is very encouraging. And along those lines, I'm back to where I grew up, back in my hometown. And while there's still a long ways to go, Piaugue or Big Flow, Big River, Jordan River, has had a lot more care and attention given to it. And that's also exciting, to see, that shift, to from before. And I think in terms of what could be done, I think what my hope, my challenge is to everyone in here and also to my organization constantly as well, like we can do more. Like there's so much here in terms of community capacity, that we should aspire to. We should aspire beyond what is in the region. I think that's a very low bar to what we actually can do right now with the communities who are here and the knowledge base that exists. And so I would like to see more intention and effort to that and make those connections. So I think we could be leaders at a national and international level for sure.